All right, welcome everybody. This is a Spiral podcast. So, this is my dad, and we kind of just watch college football, and it's just like we just talk about stuff that we see as fans, not necessarily as like a analyst or whatever. So, this is kind of just like what we see every week and our opinions on it, and we talk about playoffs, we talk about different games, matchups, um, different teams, and just anything really that's kind of coming up in college football. So,
All right, well, let's get into it. So, we already were talking this morning about Michigan and their ongoing issues in the media and everything else with the potential scandal of them cheating. And so, we just wanted to give our quick input on that and thoughts about where we think they are as a program. So, I don't know, what are your recent thoughts on the news today or yesterday about them firing their linebacker coach and them also removing their court appeal to try and overturn the Big Ten's suspension of Harbaugh? What do you think about that?
yeah, so I think that the punishment should have been worse, honestly. Like I think right now 3 games is kind of just like a baseline. I think they're just trying to get something out there cuz it's obvious that they're cheating like no matter what fan of a team you are, like it's obvious. Like they're trying to delete evidence which just kind of proves themselves more guilty. Like they obviously know that they cheated. I think Harbaugh was lying about not knowing that they cheated because if you're head coach, you gotta take like control of your whole program. So him by the saying that he doesn't is kind of just like it makes no sense. Like he had to have been behind some of it at least, and I don't know. I think all the Michigan fans, no offense, but like them trying to back themselves up is just you can't, bro. Like I don't think you can back yourself out of this, honestly. Like I think punishment should definitely be vacated wins at least for the years they were cheating. I don't know because like that's just such an unfair advantage, and you can't say that other teams are cheating because like yeah, every team cheats a little bit, but it's not to the point where they're like hiring people for 50K a year to go to all the games and record them
What do you think
and
other
get the
teams are doing
signs.
that's cheating?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like on the field, in the game, the teams are trying to, figure out the signs, but
Yeah.
that's not what they were doing at all. Like, there's that one clip against Ohio State last year. They, uh, whatever his name, Connor Stallings, I think it was. He's right next to the defensive coordinator, and he has like that little sheet, and they're just telling the defensive coordinator what it is, and then you just see him signal this or whatever, and all the defensive guys go around there. Like obviously they know it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can get away with that. I think because also Harbaugh right now he's still getting able to practice with the team, so really all he's doing is not being able to be on the field, which honestly is kind of like come on, dude, that is not a big punishment at all. Like I already know they're gonna say Michigan fans are just gonna try and say it's enough or whatever, but I think in the off season this year, I think they're gonna start hammering it down on Michigan. But what
Yeah.
do you think?
I agree. I think, well, first of all, like anything that you're doing in the game is not, I wouldn't call that cheating. I think that's
Yeah,
just, that's part of the game. That's what everyone does. What they did obviously was much more in depth, and it was intentional and it was deliberate, and they obviously had a well coordinated scheme to try and go and, steal information and things like that that no other team is doing right now. So,
yeah,
like it certainly is a next level, certainly is not defendable. And what's frustrating to me is to see, the same Michigan fans that called for Urban Meyer to be fired and called for Jim Tressel to be fired. I lived through all those things. You weren't really
yeah,
as old back then, so you didn't really have that experience. But
yeah,
those Michigan fans, man, they were the first ones to say that Ohio State was cheating and stuff, which, by the way, none of the things that those coaches were fired for or resigned for had anything to do with gaining an on-field advantage.
yeah,
So this is a whole different level, and those same fans now are continuing to say that Michigan is being unfairly treated and Michigan against everybody and all these things that they're now coming out with, which, I mean, it's really kind of sad and pathetic that they're continuing to still stand behind
Yeah.
Harbaugh and their president, and the lack of accountability that they have for that organization, for a program that continues to always just say that they are above standard compared to other schools and that they have a higher moral compass than others. It's quite hypocritical and hilarious to me as a obvious
Yeah.
Buckeye fan. So that's
Yeah.
what's kind of frustrating to me, is that there's just this unwillingness to take accountability for their actions and do something to Harbaugh on their own. Instead of complaining about the Big Ten giving them a 3-game suspension, where is their own facility and program accountability? Why do they continue to act like this is something that they're being mistreated on, or that they're the victim? It's just really, it's embarrassing, quite honestly, for them. So I agree with you. I think in the offseason there's going to be a lot more that comes down with it. But until then, we'll just have to wait and see. But
And I just want to say another thing real quick. In the COVID year, they went 2-6, and they just had a terrible year that year. And then supposedly when they started cheating, I mean, I don't think it's supposedly, I think it is pretty known by now. When they started cheating, they get like undefeated season and make it to the playoffs and win the Big Ten championship. I think there's got to be a correlation there. I'm not saying you can't improve in one season, but really, how do you go from a 30-point underdog against Ohio State in the COVID year to beating them by 20 when we had, I don't know, we were still pretty similar skill level that year, so I don't know. That's just another thing to look at. But
all right, well, shifting gears a little bit. So some of the other, today, this week, the week before traditional rivalry week, there's not a whole lot of really good matchups out there this week. Are there any games that you see as being potential upsets, or any games you have your eye on?
yeah, so definitely I think Oregon State Washington is that's kind of a known one this week. That's probably the best game of the week, honestly. It's a top 10 matchup in the Pac-12 that if Washington loses that could be really hurt. That could really hurt them, especially this late into the season. And Oregon State, they're pretty good this year. I mean, yeah, and also Oregon State has a home field advantage this week.
So it's at Oregon State.
Yeah, that's
Corvallis.
Yeah.
It's a night game, right?
Yeah,
so
7:30 for us Eastern time.
Their fans are going to be completely energized, ready to go for that game.
Yeah, they're going to be. Yeah.
I think Oregon State's been under the radar. They have actually been a really solid team. It's going to be interesting to see how this comes out. I mean, Washington obviously has won several really good games as well, so they've proven themselves too. So this is going to be a close one.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to come out on top of this game?
So Oregon State's actually favored right now, I think. Last time I checked, they were like a 1 point under. Yeah, I think.
Favorite?
Yeah, they're 1 point favorite. So, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Michael Penix is obviously a Heisman contender right now. I think Washington's offense is really good, but you also see them struggle some games, like Arizona State and, I mean, even USC. They won that game, but they let up 42 points or something, which is I don't know what to tell from their defense, honestly. So, I think Oregon State.
Their offense also really struggled in some games too. As much as they have a high-powered offense with tons of weapons on the outside and obviously a great quarterback, they also have struggled on a couple games. So it's been a little hard to tell for them. They've been up and down.
Yeah.
Somewhat, but I mean they certainly have the offense to win this game. To me, it really comes down to the defenses. I think. Oregon State's offense is pretty good too. So Oregon State's defense I have a little more faith in than Washington's defense. So I'm sort of leaning that way, and I can see why Vegas is maybe trending towards Oregon State winning this game. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with Washington. They have so much on the line here. They have a great season. They know they're so close. They can taste it. And I think they're going to come out and again, prove themselves. So I'm going with Washington in this one.
I don't
What are
know.
you doing?
I think I got Oregon State.
All right.
I just think
Like
that
big or close or
no, it's either way. I think it's going to be close because, like you said, defense is big factor, and I don't know. I think Washington on the road and night game, that environment I think is, I don't know. I I think Oregon State could win this game.
okay?
I think with their defense and DJ Uiagalelei, however you say his name,
Yeah.
he's been playing pretty good this year. So
Well, he's got something to prove too. I mean, obviously he got he got left in the dust by Clemson. They
Yeah.
sort of did him dirty.
probably won him now actually.
Yeah, no
better
doubt,
than
right?
Caleb
Like
Williams.
probably questioning life decisions. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
uh, so okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, this will be a good game. What any other games
So I
you're
think
curious about?
obviously, I mean, as an Ohio State fan, I obviously want Michigan to lose every week, but I think Maryland is pretty tough. Like, I think Michigan gets it done, but I think for actually Ohio State and Michigan, I think they're just trying to look towards the game and stuff. It seems like people are kind of forgetting about we have another week until it. So, I think also if you're Maryland, I think the coaches are telling them like they know that, and I think Maryland's going to play really tough, and I think Minnesota will too. But I think Ohio State definitely has a better chance just because it's home game also. And,
Yeah.
I mean, McCord looked really good last week. He probably had his best game of the season. And,
Yeah, but that was against a crappy Michigan
yeah,
State team.
their
so-
defense was terrible. But, I don't know. I think if McCord keeps up his good play and our defense is really good this year, so we just need to do
All
pretty
right.
good.
So
on
you're
both sides.
predicting both Michigan and Ohio State win, but
Could be close for
could be closer.
either one.
Okay.
I think, yeah,
It's
I
a
think
fair point. I don't
yeah.
know. I think, Ohio State's at home, so they got senior day, so they're going to want to,
Yeah.
play really well that last game. So they may come out on fire. But they've had other games, Rutgers and Maryland both, come to mind where they
Yeah.
kind of started out slow and then had to pull away in the second half. So I'm not sure that it may not be
Yeah.
a same sort of situation today, too.
Yeah.
And for Michigan, I think they're obviously dealing with a lot of distractions right now, but I'm not sure that the players really care. I mean, obviously they do care, but
Yeah.
I think they're probably locked into because they also know what's at stake. So
Yeah.
I don't see any trip ups today on those two games.
Yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about playoff possibilities and scenarios here. I know there's been all sorts of different scenarios being talked on media. College Game Day had some different things going on. Whole host of things that can happen. I'm not sure how many of them will,
Yeah.
but regardless, we got some SEC possibilities here. We know Alabama and Georgia are already locked in for the SEC championship game. It's obviously a given if Georgia wins, they're in.
Yeah.
The real question is if Alabama were to beat Georgia, what implications does that have in terms of the playoff picture? I think you could fairly confidently say that whoever wins between Ohio State and Michigan, that team is in the playoff. I think that's
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to have to play Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, but
I think either one. Whoever wins that game will probably beat Iowa, honestly.
right. So going under that assumption that that's the case, then the other contenders here are Florida State, the Pac-12 champion, which right now looks like Washington's
Could be
obviously in the
Washington.
front seat. And then you got Georgia, Alabama, and then Big 12, you got Texas sitting there with a
Yeah.
huge W over Alabama right now, which is continuing to
Yeah, that win is getting
be
better.
really, really important and could potentially be a really big thorn in SEC's side. So let's take a minute and say that Georgia does lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
What do you think, or who do you think should be the four teams in the playoff in that situation?
If Georgia loses,
Yeah.
so obviously Ohio State / Michigan will be one of them.
Okay, that's one.
I think Florida State wins out. Honestly, I think they'll beat Louisville. They haven't played anybody, but still, you can't say that they have a bad roster. Like, Keon Coleman is really good. Jordan Travis is a really great quarterback. So I think they win out. So I think they're both in.
Okay, that's 2.
And then, so if Washington loses today, it's just hard because Pac-12.
Let's
is
say Washington
really
wins
good.
out.
Okay.
So Washington
Yeah,
wins
Washington
out,
would be
Georgia
in.
loses. Now you got so you got the Ohio State Michigan loser, you got Texas, you got Alabama, and Georgia, and Oregon, all with 1 loss. Which
Yeah.
2 teams go in if you're putting the Big Ten winner and Florida State in? Who are the other 2 teams you put in?
I don't. It's hard, dude. That's almost too hard to predict. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't think Alabama can go ahead of Texas no matter what. As long as Texas doesn't take another loss, which in this case they wouldn't, I guess. Then I don't know. I don't think you can. I don't think a win over Georgia, while it's an amazing win, I don't think you can really trump the head-to-head, honestly.
Of Texas beating Bama?
And it was at Alabama, too. So, you can't tell me. I don't care if it's week 2, they were playing bad. It's a loss. If there's
You only have 12 games in the year, so
Yeah.
everyone matters.
Yeah.
You can't just say, well,
You
that
can't
was
just
early in
say
the year.
that.
They've changed now.
if
Because
that's
every
a-
team's changed now.
if that's Ohio State or if that's not an SEC team, they're not even in the conversation.
True.
That-
That's a good point.
That's just how it is. And
So what I'm hearing you say is you have Texas over Alabama,
yeah,
and then also over Georgia, since Alabama beat Georgia. Because you can't put Georgia in after Alabama just beat them and not put Alabama in. Right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't say Georgia's still in because they won last 2 years. Even though they just lost. And then the team they just lost to, who also only has 1 loss, doesn't get in.
can't. Yeah,
You can't do that. You
Yeah.
can't keep them ahead of Alabama. And if you can't do that, and you can't put Alabama above Texas because Texas beat them in a head-to-head, then it seems to me like Texas is in.
yeah. I mean, yeah, theoretically, yeah.
So in that case, you're saying it would be the Big Ten champ, Florida State, Washington if Washington wins
If
out,
they win out, yep.
and Texas.
I think that's
And
what
no
it has to
SEC
be.
school.
I mean, that's what I think should happen, but
Okay, so
You
what do
know-
you think's going to happen? You think
I
you
think-
think it's different?
I think it'll be. It's hard to tell. If teams lose, it'll be way easier. But I think
Well, in the same scenario.
no matter what, yeah.
So we said what you think should be. Like, who do you think will be?
I think Georgia will still get in at the 4. That's just what I think because, just the way that the committee talks about Georgia and they rank them,
Even with a loss to
I
Alabama,
think so.
they would put them in and leave Alabama out.
I think that's what would happen because I think Texas is kind of preventing. Texas is like the team in between them, in between Alabama from going over. So as long as they went out, Alabama can't jump them. So it's kind of just the team. I don't think Georgia would get ranked behind Alabama. That means they'd have to
I
be
think you're wrong. I think they're going to put Alabama in
No.
because they'll say they have the best one of the year, and the loss to Texas was early on, and they have changed. And
Yeah.
Milroe wasn't playing like he was now. And so I think they're going to say, well, they just beat the number 1 team in the country, the 2-time national champion, and the win earlier in the year was not as important because,
Yeah.
They shouldn't be penalized for having a non-conference loss, whatever they want to say.
Yeah, whatever.
And they will put Alabama back in. They will leave Georgia out.
Well,
Now, the other thing is, game day, they were talking about keeping Florida State out and putting
No.
both Alabama and Georgia in.
you can't
That's
do that.
just
You
absolutely...
cannot do that. No.
That's treasonous.
Yeah.
You can't have a
Yeah.
team win their conference and go undefeated and
I
not
mean,
put them
yeah.
in over 2 one-loss teams.
Yeah.
And so in that case, they would put both Georgia and Alabama in. They would leave out an undefeated Florida State, and they would leave out Texas, who also
Who
beat them.
Alabama.
If that doesn't show SEC bias, then
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else what other proof you need that they are just given
Yeah.
extra preferential
Yeah.
treatment. And by the way, let's not forget that the Pac-12 has been the best conference all year long, and you got Oregon sitting there with 1 loss, who honestly looks like the better team compared to Washington even, and certainly it's got to be
Probably
considered one of the
Texas.
top 10,
Right,
well,
yeah.
top 5 or 4 teams in the country right now, the way they're playing.
I mean, yeah.
And they, we're not even entertaining that discussion of Oregon potentially being in that mix, and they really should be because they also are playing lights out right now.
Yeah.
So I think all of this, it's going to get interesting these last 2 weeks here, and if everyone holds serve, and then
Yeah.
it becomes pretty simple. You'd have an undefeated Florida State, undefeated Georgia, undefeated Big Ten, and
And then
undefeated
Washington.
Washington. And then it's a
That's the
no-brainer, right? Like
easiest.
that's
That's what will
there's
happen.
no debates at all. But one or two of these teams lose, and then we got a whole lot of fun headed our way, and it could be a perfect last season for the
Yeah. 14.
4-team playoff
Yeah.
because it'll have all sorts of chaos involved, and further justify why going to 12 is the right move for college football. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I mean, yeah. So I still think that like Alabama will get left out, but I think SEC bias like will compensate for Georgia being left in. I think because they're like Georgia also just brings in so many viewers and like they just bring in so much money for them. Like
you don't think Oregon does,
no, Oregon definitely does, but like I don't know.
or Texas? Texas is a huge program.
Yeah, I know.
I think they have the second most fans behind
Ohio State,
State.
probably. I don't know. I just think because they've been number 1 or number 2 all year. I don't know. I just think they won't leave them out, honestly. And I think they should be left out probably, but
All right,
know.
so one last question.
Mhm.
Who do you think is going to win it all as of right now, what we know today with the body of work that everyone's contributed to? Who do you think is going to be the national champ?
So biased, I'd say Ohio State, which I think is definitely a good possibility. I think,
Okay.
but skill wise and how teams have been playing, I'm trying to think. So Georgia has been kind of playing. Georgia's been playing really good, honestly. You can't. They're definitely probably the favorite right now, if I had to guess, just based on how they beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And they're. I still think they're probably going to beat Alabama in the championship. So I think that might all just be.
Yeah.
You
So then they beat whoever
They have a
Sisters
couple-
of the Poor they're playing today, and then they're going to beat Georgia Tech,
yeah, Tennessee.
and they're going to beat
is-
Alabama. And so then, you going with Georgia to win it all?
I think that's probably who will, honestly.
Yeah.
That's got to be the favorite right now. But also, I just want to say something about them today. Like, Tennessee is going to get killed today. Like, if you look at their schedule, their best win is probably unranked Kentucky by 6. Like, that's probably their best win. They beat all the good teams that they've played this year, they've lost to, and they're still number 18, which is kind of just another way of getting Georgia that great ranked win, I guess. But then they'll say Notre Dame's a bad one, but whatever. I still think Georgia's going to kill them, though. Like, I think Georgia will probably beat them by 30 plus today.
I agree.
I think,
And I do also agree with you. I think Georgia, as of today,
they'd probably be the favorite to win.
they're the favorite to win.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like it. But
Yeah.
all right.
So, yeah.
It's a good talk.
Yeah. So, thank you to everybody for coming in and watching. If you have any comments about what we say or opinions or anything we should talk about in upcoming podcasts, just let us know in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.
All right.
All right, bye.